If you knew me before, you wouldn't even look my way. If I had the nerve to speak, you wouldn't hear what I say. Time has come and gone so fast, we're not who we used to be.
And welcome back to Sullivan's Unheard Voices. I'm here with Jim. Jim, thank you so much for being here today.
Not a problem.
So, I met you through the Raven Kings. And I remember coming to that first show and seeing you get ready, and you have this sort of serious look on your face, right? So you're kind of like an intimidating figure when you have your mean mug on. But the minute that you powered up, you lit up like a Christmas tree. And I could tell immediately that music was in your blood, because it was one of those things where like, oh, I get it. Yeah, now I get it. So like, how did you start in music to begin with?
Well, when I was a young child, my dad was a guitar player. I would say not a very good guitar player, but a guitar player nonetheless. We had guitars in the house for a while. I never really learned to play at that point in time, but through a series of we'll just say abusive events in our childhood. We all survived, myself and my siblings. I'm the fourth out of five. And once he passed, I ended up living with my uncle. I was 14 at the time, and I wanted to play guitar really badly. So he came home with this big, what I thought at the time, ugly, hollow body guitar. This was 1988. So you had to have a Super Strat or a Flying V or an Explorer or something with a lot of points or bright, flashy paint. Basically, Brian Setzer-ish guitar was not cool. And I kind of learned how to play it. Had the worst action ever, looking back on it. Sold that, ended up getting more guitar, a different guitar, then selling and selling and buying and selling and buying and selling and practicing the entire time. But one of the reasons behind it was initially kind of out of spite.
Okay.
One of the things, one of the abuses that we suffered as children was that our dad would bring things into our lives, activities, different things, and that he was interested in. And as soon as we started to excel and become better than him at something, it would be taken away. It's like, no, I can't have you be better than me. So after he was gone, I decided I'm going to start playing the guitar. And I'm going to get better than him, and there's not a damn thing he can do about it. So I did. Now, music has a funny way of being healing, in a lot of ways. I ended up playing music, and a lot of music, and I spent most of my formative years, instead of chasing girls, playing guitar. Then girls came later, but they came to me because I now had something to, I had a lure, if you will. So anyway, then I just kept playing, and it's funny that with the Raven Kings, Ted, Jesse, and myself, we've known each other since high school, but we lost touch because, people age, they go different ways, they do different things, and about 3 years ago, I lost my first wife after 28 and a half years, just a sudden pulmonary embolism, and that was it. So instead of retreating into a shell, which is very easy to do in that situation, I decided I'm going to play music, and started going to different places where music was being played, and ran into Jesse and Ted again, and I showed up at the jam session. I like to tell people the Raven Kings was born out of the jam culture in Salem. That's how we all kind of get together and trade ideas and throw things up against the wall and see what sticks. And after a while, I'm like, I'd really like to play with those guys. I play in a couple of different bands, but I'd really like to play with those guys. And then they kind of knew that. So Jesse calls me up and says, hey, you want to come play with us? I said, sure. He said, come on out to my place. So I went out there and boom, that was it.
So how did you come across running a music store?
Well, interesting. For those who are watching, I'm one of the owners of Bullfrog Music in Corvallis. Just a small store. We do a lot of interesting stuff here. We primarily do guitars, basses, strings, and frets. This is a lot of our used inventory. We do carry a bunch of other neat new stuff, including repairs and modifications. We like to tell people that most guitar repair stores are like your typical mechanic. You bring your car into the mechanic just to get it fixed, and you're on your way. We're the guy that you take your guitar to get hot rodded. We're the hot rod shop. We like to, like you want a modification, we'll do it. Now, what brought me into it, though, is it's younger. I would say, 25, 26, 27 years ago now. Good Lord, I'm getting old. I started working in a furniture factory. Then I went into cabinet work. So that's a lot of precise woodworking. And after that, I became an HVAC technician and sheet metal worker. So wood, metal, electronics. I play guitar. And if you look back behind me, there's a lot of wood, metal, and electronics. And I play guitar, and it just all kind of came right here. Here we are. And then the original owner of the shop was a good friend of mine since a young age, probably about 16 or 17 years old. He retired about 5 years ago and sold the store to a younger guy who I thought was a great fit for the store. Really nice guy. About 8 months after he bought the store, he was diagnosed with colon cancer, and about 3 weeks later, he passed. Now,
heartbreaking.
I took that as my sign that I love this store. A lot of people love this store. It's built a great reputation over the years, and I didn't want to see it die. I was looking for my way out of construction work because it takes a heavy toll on a person's body. It's not an old guy's game. I don't being over 50. I'm considered antique. I'm a dinosaur in the construction field. So I needed something I could do where I could be a little less strenuous on my body and actually enjoy what I do, because near the end of my time doing heating and air conditioning, I was starting to get suicidal. Just noises, of certain volumes. It was just getting just way too much strain on my body and strain on my mind. And then I got into this, and it's like, like they say, and the saying is true: you do what you love, you never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so something I always talk to musicians about, and I'm kind of curious about in your regard, is, so you started practicing with the guitar. Mm-hmm. At what point did you start to recognize that you're kind of pretty good at this?
Well, I don't know if I wouldn't know that I'm kind of, guitar players are kind of self-deprecating in a sense. We really are. Not any guitar, there's very few guitar players that will try and say, I'm great, I'm good. I'm one of those guys, like, I'm okay. I like to play. I have fun. I know where my strength lies, and I know what to, I know how to fit. I try to figure out where I fit in a given song. And that's why you'll see sometimes on a certain song, I'm just playing a little simple little, or it's just a little clicky little riff that adds a texture to the music. And realistically, in my entire 37 years of playing guitar, I've had 2 months of formal lessons. Now, my secret, and here's the great secret for everyone that wants to know, is if you're just starting out playing guitar, always try to play with people that are better than you, right? Always do that, because that's free lessons. You can just absorb what they're doing, and then what happens a lot is you'll take a little something from this guitar player, a little something from this guitar player, and you blend them together in your own way, and then you kind of create your own unique voice on guitar.
So I can say, without a shadow of a doubt, 100% of all guitarists that I have asked that question to have had the same answer as you.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and I love that. It's just why I keep asking the question, because I just love to hear, because like even the greatest guitar player of all time, rather who that, and I'm not going to put a name on that, but they still say the same thing. Like, I can always improve. I can always do better.
There's always more. And then when you think you've gotten enough out of 6 strings, now they have 7 and 8 string guitars and even beyond, where you have more and more lower and higher frequencies depending on your tuning. The guitar, even with this regular 6 strings, you can change your tuning to a different style and give the guitar a completely different voice. There's one of the most popular things that I've seen done in years is in a lot of popular music pieces is people will take a 12-string guitar, which normally a 12-string guitar you play as a 6-string, but it's courses of 2 strings per.
Yeah.
But they'll remove all of the low strings, so you wind up still with the standard note tuning, but because they're on a different octave now you have a completely different voice to the instrument.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
And a different voice opens yourself up to all kinds of new kinds of songs.
Oh, of course, yeah. And you know, and both myself, I have a business partner, Sean. His name happens to be Sean. He spells it in a silly way because we're musicians, we're artists. We want to make ourselves different. We both say that the only rule is there are no rules.
Yeah.
You know, and we've always tried, at least here in the store, to be every guitar player here is playing at the level that they're at. We try to encourage people. We want people to play instruments. Like, if you don't think you're good, that's okay. You know, everyone plays exactly to the level that they want, or they're working to get to where they want. And you know, we've had customers come in that we've made lifetime customers out of because they've gone to one of the other music stores here in the area, and were treated, because they were a beginner, like they weren't worthy to touch the instruments. Now, one of the biggest things, especially with owning a store versus online, is with a guitar, you can't pick it up online and play it. You know, every single piece of wood in here, I can take 2 different guitars that are both the same specification, the same body shape, the same wood combinations, the same, literally everything. Both of them can be radically different, especially in an acoustic instrument, because, you know, whereas with an electric guitar, we're relying on a speaker to make our sound, the box of the acoustic guitar is the speaker, and a different material can, you know, impart a different tonality to it. And even though you don't, like to that point, I had when I bought my last acoustic guitar with my late wife, we had 2 different guitars. They were both the exact same model, the exact same wood combination and everything. I actually had to have her stand across the room with her back towards me, because people tend to listen with their eyes a lot. They'll see a particular brand of guitar and think, well, that's good because that says this on the headstock. You know, I'm like, the rubber meets the road where it's in your hands and in your ears. That's the most important part. You know, I try to tell them, can you tell what kind of guitar that, say, David Gilmour was using on another brick in the wall? Exactly.
No. Yeah.
Exactly. You can't see it. You have to use your ears. That's where music is.
And that's interesting that you say that too, because I look at it from the flip side too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like you, if you're wanting to get into music and you want to pick up a guitar, it's got to be an experience of a guitar that calls to you. Mm-hmm. No 2 people strum the same way. No 2 people have the same force in their strum. No 2 people take the same exact approach. So you never know what kind of guitar is going to be good for your style until you pick it up and try and play.
Exactly.
So like to just spend something online and just hope for the best, like you're kind of setting your kid up for failure.
Kind of, yeah. And one of the things that we will do here is, especially with all of our brand new instruments that we come in, we have a lot of brand new instruments, but we give lifetime support. As long as you own the instrument that you buy here new, If you need your strings changed, you just buy a set of strings from us. We'll change the strings for you, do all of your routine maintenance that's required on guitars. Most people don't even realize you have to maintain these things. You have wood under tension with metal. It's something's got to give, so they have things like a truss rod in the neck to counteract the string pull on the neck, spring tension in the bridge, all these different little things that a lot of people don't know about. So we definitely, we stand behind the stuff that we sell, and we want to make it so that, all you have to do is worry about is your guitar playing good.
Yeah.
And you can't get that kind of stuff online. You just can't get that. And a lot of the times we're actually matched with online pricing. So to get that kind of extra with what you've bought,
It's a no-brainer.
it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And plus, it's fun to talk to people. We like to talk to people. We're humans are social creatures, So you gotta go somewhere. And luckily it's kind of silly because there's actually 3 music stores here on this very street, but they're all wildly different. And while this shop might not tickle someone's fancy, one of the other ones does. And that's kind of the
Personal
beauty of it.
preference is personal
Yeah,
preference.
personal preference
Yeah.
is personal preference.
As long, and I've said this ad nauseum, so forgive me for saying it again, every dollar you invest locally stays local. Every dollar you invest to Amazon goes out of the area. So not only are you supporting local, you're getting the same product for better support at the same price. It's like a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, you actually get to really
Try it.
Yeah, you get to try it first. Plus, you actually get to look into the face of the person who is selling it to you, and and is offering his wisdom, his knowledge. Sometimes you don't know what you want, as a beginning guitar player, or even as a seasoned guitar player. I don't know what I'm looking for. So, being able to talk to someone with expertise that says, hey, let's narrow the search pattern for you. Because just by looking around here, you can see there are a bunch of different styles, shapes, orientations. I have left-handed, right-handed guitars, and acoustic, electric, hollow body. You don't know what you want? Well, let's kind of take a listen and talk with you and find out, well, what's your goal? Especially with beginners, there's this old wives' tale that's always gone around. I'm sure you might have heard it. You have to start on an acoustic guitar.
Okay.
So that's always been. You have to start on an acoustic guitar. It's like no. It's like say, well, what if your favorite guitar player that you like to listen to that's inspiring you? Because we're all inspired by other musicians to want to play music, and not everyone is listening to acoustic guitar. There are people who are listening to guitar players like Slash, like Steve Vai, like all of that. Well, if your main influences are Ace Frehley, an acoustic guitar is not gonna satisfy your inspiration. You need an electric guitar and an amplifier. It's just otherwise you're going to get frustrated because you're never going to sound like those records. I mean, granted, you never will sound like those records. I also believe the guitar players do have very unique voices in their instrumentation and how they approach their instruments. I mean, you can listen to a Stevie Ray Vaughan song and be like, "That's Stevie Ray Vaughan,"
100%.
without even hearing it. It's like when one of the funniest things, it's well known at this point, but when Michael Jackson did "Beat It." All of the guitars and the bass for the rhythm section were done by Steve Lukather from Toto. But the guitar solo came up. It was done by Eddie Van Halen. And he just did it on a lark for, legend has it was a 6-pack of beer and, let's go have some fun, and he didn't even want credit on the album at first until it took off, But as soon as people heard that, the first couple of notes of his solo, it's like, that's Eddie Van Halen. You just know, when you hear it.
So one thing I'm kind of curious about, right, because you've been playing now for as long as you have, with the transition to the newer sort of generation amplifiers in particular, has the sound changed overall, or have they sort of done a good job of sort of hearkening back to the past, and you can still get some of those sounds that you could only get in a tube?
They've actually really done a great job with it. In the past 10 years, it's expanded leaps and bounds in modeling technology. Excuse me. Before I got my first modeling unit, I was playing through a big tube half stack amplifier, that we could just peel the paint off of walls. And the sound guys, I was the bane of every sound man in town, because I wanted it louder, because that's what you do. You're a guitar player. You want to be loud. You want to be, you want to have that the swagger thing. I'm louder. I'm better. I'm faster. And that's kind of the what I want to put out on stage. I want people to think I've got that swagger because it is what it is. But in reality, we're all nerds. All musicians are nerds.
Take that to the bank, y'all.
As cool as you think you are. Okay. Anyway, but they've gotten a lot better over the past years, and that's why I've made the switch. And primarily because I've noticed in many years of playing as well, and many years of lugging these heavy amplifiers around, they are not light. And then lifting cabinets on cabinets, because I had a full stack that was actually an amplifier that was taller than me at one point, because you want to be bigger. You want that wall of Marshalls because it looks cool. Then you come to find out that whole wall of Marshalls is just cardboard.
Right?
It's all for show. But the people in the audience, they don't care what I'm playing through. They don't care what guitar I have. They don't care what amplifier or what effects loop I'm using, or different all my tech to get my sound. They want to be there and have a good time and dance. And if their toes aren't tapping, I don't care. I don't care what kind of equipment I have. I've failed. The toes aren't tapping. The people aren't dancing. They're not having a good time. I don't see smiles. One of the things I used to say is when I was still doing HVAC. So I'm an HVAC guy, but I'm also a part-time beer salesman. Because a lot of the gigs, they're getting called back from gigs for future gigs is contingent upon beer sales on how the bar does that night. If they're not doing well, they're not making money. If they're not making money, they're not calling me back. So I got to give people what they want. So I've always learned to play a lot of different styles of music too, because different. I can have a crowd of 100 people, and out of 100 people, I'll play a song that maybe 20 people like. Then I'll play a song that the whole crowd likes. Then I'll play a song that 60% of the crowd likes. But I'm always trying to make everyone feel like they're a part of it.
And talk about that for a second, right? Because one of the things that I love talking to musicians about is that whole symbiotic relationship between the band and the audience. So, what do you enjoy about the experience of being in front of an audience that's vibing with you as an artist?
It's what's not to like, you're having fun. They're sending their positive energy to me, so I want to play even more. I want to be even more on top of my game. I've always tried to be on top of my game. A long time ago, I decided I'm not going to be I'm usually not going to be on any kind of alcohol or any substance. Even when I was drinking, I did quit drinking pretty much permanently about 3 years ago. I haven't had a drink in almost 3 years.
Congratulations.
Not for any other reason than I just was getting to the point. It's like I don't feel as good. I don't like this. I'm not enjoying this. So I just stopped. Which is kind of amazing coming from a family. My dad, not only was he abusive, he was also a raging alcoholic. Those two things tend to go hand in hand, alcoholism and abuse. Just the fact that I had the wherewithal just to say, yeah, I'm done, But I've also noticed over time, and when I play, when I pick up my instrument and do my thing, I'm not as good when I'm drinking. You always think you're better when you're drinking. But I was like, I'd go back and look at some video, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, I'm going to stop that. And I always, I would never go to my day job drunk. And, to some extent, I do think of a gig as a job. I'm being paid to be there, right? And as part of being paid to be there, I'm supposed to give you my best. And anything less than my best is not what I'm here to do. You know, I mean, and not only that, it looks bad on me as a performer, you know, showing up, you know, in less than 100% shape. Granted, now I'm getting even better than 100% shape because I've got this wonderful wife that now likes to, you know, style me for my shows.
Which I love, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, every time I go to a show, and I wonder what Jim's going to be wearing, because I geek out every time. I dig it so much.
Yeah, you know, they say dress for the job you want, and I want to be a rock star. You know? So I got to look the part, right? So sparkly shoes, sparkly guitars, you know, sparkly shirts, or, you know, leopard print or what have you, whatever makes it look good. One of these days I might get out the Aquanet.
Oh, I hope to be there for that day.
You know, yeah.
So what I'm curious though, like, at what point did you decide to go wireless with your guitar? Because I love it when you like hop off the stage and like play within the crowd. And
Oh God, it's probably about 10 years that I decided to start going wireless. I had a wire. I got my first one about then, and you know, it's like it's hard to find a good wireless unit, at least a good enough wireless unit. I ended up spending the money, and that's why I tell people a lot: if you're really going to do this, spend the money. It's expensive, but it's worth it. You know, get the good stuff. You know, as far as all of your connections go, the cables, connectors, all the stuff where I say where the 200-pound gorilla meets the machine. Those are your major fail points. So you want to make those bulletproof, and that's what I did on this last setup that I have. But it was just you know, everyone wants to go wireless because you can go all over the place, and I can play in front of people. I can interact more with the crowd, which that's where the fun's at, you know. And then people's like, wait a minute, he's got no, yeah.
how is he here?
Yeah, I've got no strings to hold me down. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
And then in terms of like, so I'm curious too, like, so one of the things that I appreciate about your current setup with the Raven Kings is that because you have the two guitars, you have freedom now.
Yeah.
Where you can do some really cool stuff, or Jesse can do some really cool stuff. Like, what is that? How is the difference between being like in a 4-piece versus a 5-piece?
Well, guitar players, especially when they're writing writing music, and a lot of the stuff that we have has been written before I even joined Raven Kings. So Jesse has a particular style that he plays, and you have to fill the space, at least enough. I like to fill the space enough, you know, because if you fill the space too much, it turns into a big mushy mess. Generally, you don't want two guitar players playing the exact same part at the same time, unless, you know, a certain incident, a certain, you know, set of circumstances makes you need to play the same thing. But I always try to play something that is a counterpoint, you know, that kind of, you know, so when he's playing these big luscious chords, I'm just doing this little single string rhythmic thing that kind of adds, you know, its own bit. It's like with orchestras, you have, you know, first, second, third chair, you know, of whatever instrument you're playing. So with all these different things, you have to have a different voicing that kind of creates the whole, you know. And if you don't create that whole, you just create a muddy mess. So, but you know, things like the harmony leads, I've always loved. I had another band that I was in years ago that we love to do harmonized parts because it's fun watching all three of us, like at the end with the boys are back in town, and we all get together and we're all pointing our necks out to the crowd. It's just fun, you know. We love to play to the crowd because, you know, it gets them more engaged. Yeah.
And I try to stress upon people all the time the importance of like going out and supporting local music, because like it's one of those things where the more we can support local musicians, the more great musicians we get. And so it's not about just supporting those at the top. It's about supporting those in the middle, supporting those just beginning. It's how do we support musicians in general? So, like, talk me through, like, how important it was for you as a musician to have that community or band support in order for, you know, when you get on stage, but also afterwards. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, one of the biggest things I like to tell people is that, today's young lady singing at the local venue is tomorrow's Taylor Swift, right? Get in on the ground floor with them, man. Say, hey, I remember when that guy was playing at West Side Station, or that guy was playing at this little hole-in-the-wall venue, you become more connected with the more popular music, especially if you find something that's local. And these are your friends. Get out and support your friends. They're having a good time. Come and have a good time with them. We want fun, and I think last night was fun.
Last night was a blast.
So much fun. It was so well attended. I was so pleased. But yeah, get out and support your local guys. Just have fun with them. They're working hard. A lot of people don't realize that putting on a gig is a lot of work. When we provide our sound, I tell people for me, if I'm providing my own PA system for a gig, about 4-hour gig is about a 10 to 12 hour day. Between load in, load out, driving, from my home to the venue, and running cables. That's why I get that mean mug. I'm like, I'm busy. Yeah, I've got to get this done. And show time's at 9, so I only have a certain amount of time to get things done, and going over checklists in my head of which cable is where, because I want to say I probably just in XLR cables. I have one box of XLR cables, and I probably have about $1,400 worth of XLR cables. And that's not that big of a box. I've got about, I have like somewhere around 50 to 60 XLR cables to keep track of. It's a lot of cable. And then lights, if I have to provide lights, I've got to do all of this, and then I got to test everything and check everything and sound check for the room, and all that stuff. So it's like, yeah. But then once it's on stage, party's on. And then I've got to keep that energy up for that much time. And then once I'm done, I've got another 3 to 4 hours between
breaking everything back down. And I'm as a lot of people will point out, I am very meticulous about my cable care and how I wrap my cables, because it's a tool. You take care of your tools, they'll take care of you. You take care of your cables, they'll take care of you. You wind them up correctly, and you get them all in the same spot, and they'll last longer. And it's kind of silly if you see my whole PA setup. I have, 6 15-inch mains, 4 12-inch monitors, 2 18-inch subwoofers. I have both an analog mixer rig and a digital mixer rig, stands, speaker stands, lighting truss. It all fits in a 4-foot by 6-foot enclosed trailer. Have you ever played Tetris? Not that well.
And everything that I have has to go in a certain way, in a certain, in a very certain format, in a very certain order. Otherwise, it doesn't. And I did that kind of on purpose, because now I can't get more stuff.
Yeah, I get that.
Because as all musicians know, my business depends on what's called GAS, gear acquisition syndrome. It's my bread and butter. People have to have the next thing. Whether the next thing is something new or something from the 1950s or 40s. I've got instruments. Let's say my oldest ones are here were made in the 70s, but I've had things as early as 1952. I had a 1910 parlor guitar that I restored and sold.
That must have been beautiful. How was the sound on that?
It was a very unique sound, because a parlor guitar is a very small-bodied acoustic guitar. It was made for the parlor. You didn't want something loud, because when you start getting into your bluegrass, that's where things like the Dreadnought, the big boxes came out, because now you got to keep up with the mandolin and the banjo, and those instruments are loud, just because of the tension that's on them. There's all sorts of different things for different purposes.
And one of the things I love to talk to musicians too about is about the songwriting process, because I believe that the muse is sort of like a living and breathing thing, and I'm always curious, like, what do you do when the muse visits you? Do you record things? Do you have a notebook on ready? Because you never know when she's going to visit. Sometimes it's even 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. One of the most, that's why cell phones, modern cell phones, have become such a thing, especially with things like voice memos. I will use that. I've done that and actually came up with a couple of songs. I not only am I in the Raven Kings, I also play in another band called the Divine Wind Brotherhood. We play traditional surf music. Yeah, it's a completely different. And then there are times where I'll just think of this little riff in my head, and I'm like, hey, Isaac, is our bass player, Isaac Jones, says, what do you think of this? And he goes, that's cool. Let's expand. And so currently I have, let's see, probably about 4 songs that were of mine that came out of just out of nowhere from me that we're recording. And it's silly how I got this particular gig because I was much more brash in my youth. I've mellowed out a little bit, a lot of things to mellow out over. But Bob Shade, our other guitar player, and believe me, I'm the baby of this band. Bob, the other guys are in their 70s. Our other guitar player is almost 80. So but I love keeping them going. It's fun. It's a blast. He called me up and said they needed a fill-in guitar player for a gig, and I'm like, well, Bob, surf music is nothing more than thrash metal, but without the distortion.
Okay, I love that. Actually, that is actually like a perfect analogy.
Yeah. So you take like some fast tremolo Megadeth, you remove the distortion, you've got Dick Dale. Add a lot of reverb, and he goes, yeah, you're kind of right. And he calls me up, and I go and I start to rehearse them for this gig. And, we did okay. We finished up the gig. We loaded back up and went back to Bob's place to unload it all. And I said, all right, I'll see you guys next Tuesday. And he's like, you're going to keep playing with us? I'm like, yeah, I'm having fun. And that's actually turned into, now we're recording an album. We have released our first single on a 45.
How cool is that?
Yeah, I mean, so it's the coolest thing ever because I've heard myself recorded on, obviously on Facebook videos. I've done digital recordings. I've been on CDs and other things like that over the years. But dropping the needle on a record and you hear you coming out of the speaker is a surreal experience. And I had to give I've given a couple of copies to a couple of good friends of mine, and one of them is he's actually put out an album and had a major top 40 hit with it. He's actually one of my clients here, and I've helped him beef up his instruments to be more roadworthy. But yeah, he's in South America right now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, take us through that process, though, right? So, one of the things that struck me as we started talking before we came on air is that you're able to sort of beef up a guitar. Mm-hmm. I didn't even know that was a thing until just today. Yeah. So, what do you mean for people who may not know when you're saying, I can beef up a guitar? Okay. Well,
for instance, we can start with things like just the physical parts that make the guitar a guitar, the nut, the bridge. A lot of inexpensive guitars use plastic, use cheaper metal parts. We can replace them with either bone or other materials that are more traditional and stronger, and also don't soak up the vibration, right? Everything that you do on the guitar sucks up some of the vibration in some way or another of the string, and every bit of that gets rid of overtones, gets rid of you wind up losing sound, right? So by reducing how much we take away from the vibration, the more of that sound actually gets through. Then there are things like the pickups. Most guitars, they have, like here, magnetic pickups. That's what actually is doing the lion's share of making the guitar louder at first. It's basically, they're magnets with copper wire wrapped around them. Pretty simple, really. Yeah. Certain magnets and certain amounts of wire can affect your sound in a way that you find pleasing or displeasing, for that matter. And we can change those out to whatever people want. You want to add more pickups because not only does the pickup itself make a difference, where it's located makes a difference.
Interesting. So, as you're looking at the guitar behind you, for example, mm-hmm. if you move that the 8th string, the pickup there, mm-hmm. if you move that up 2 inches,
it's going to have a different tonality because you're picking up a different section of the string. That's why you see on a lot of electric guitars you have two, three, sometimes two or three pickups, and you can switch between all of them. And you switch up to the one closest to the neck, it's going to have a darker, deeper tone. You play at the one at the bridge, right next to the bridge, and it's going to have a thinner tone but more biting. So it depends on what you're trying to achieve. You can do all sorts of crazy stuff with it. We can upgrade things like certain guitars have tremolo systems where they have the whammy bar. You can change those out for a higher quality or a different style. Add a locking one that we can add different tuners that have a better ratio to make sure your tuning is more precise. Or even ones that lock the string in, so you're less likely to slip out of tune. And then on the other side of things, we can do things like with the volume knobs. We can take the potentiometers out and replace those with better quality components. A lot of import guitars, they cheap out on stuff like that. So things like the input jack, or the output jack. Let me correct that. Everyone says it's the input jack, not on the guitar. It's the output jack because that's where the sound's coming out of. So all of these little things, switches and things like that, where we put in top-notch components, as opposed to, because everything's manufactured to a price,
Yeah.
And in order to make the most amount of profits, they'll save 30 cents on a switch, but that 30 cents is over thousands of guitars. That turns into real money for real profit loss, for real loss of profit for them. Sometimes at the expense of the quality and the longevity of the piece. But if the guitar itself, the instrument itself, is a solid instrument, we can do that. And I'll even go even farther. And I have I do refrets. Both of my guitars that I was using last night, the pink and the purple one, they were bought them brand new and immediately started modifying them, because it's like, okay, I recognize what's good, but I have my own set of criteria that I feel. And there's one of them is I replaced the frets with a different type of material. The traditional frets are made out of they call it a nickel silver compound. No actual silver, but it's just nickel. But the material is softer than the strings. So every time you touch the guitar, every time you fret a note, you're digging a little tiny bit of metal. And like when you see stairs, that have over time have been just worn down, and they've got curves in them now. Even though they're stone, but so many people have stepped on them over the years, it just erodes a little bit. Stainless steel is harder than the steel of the strings, so it doesn't wear out as much. Plus, it feels smoother. And so I've done stuff like that where I've refretted them. I've learned how to, over the years, how to set up a guitar. So many different things you can do to, quote unquote, set up a guitar, where you adjust things like the height of the strings, the curve of the neck, the radius of the bridge pieces. Where I've gotten such low and light action, and I use such light strings, I barely even have to work to play my guitar anymore. But which is helpful because arthritis is a thing.
Yeah.
And my options were quit playing or set it up different. And quit playing is not an option for me. It's after a while, music becomes less a part of what you do and a part of it becomes who you are.
And along those same lines, I'm curious, how important is it to make sure you have the right kind of strings?
Well, it depends on the guitar and the guitarist itself. A different string gauge, the thickness of the strings themselves, can affect your sound. Every little bit of the guitar can affect your sound in one way or another. I've actually discovered for myself that lighter strings work better for me. I can still adjust things like pickup height and other things to accommodate and change my gain staging and the amplification and all this other stuff to adjust for that. Some people, they want to fight their instrument. They feel like they need to fight it because it's just this never-ending battle to get art, to get your art. I mean, they have to. They can't just let it flow. One of the most interesting stories I'd heard was when it was Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top and B.B. King. They were hanging out, and there's this old underlying thought that you have to have heavy strings to get a good tone, right? And Billy Gibbons was using what we call 11 gauge strings. That's where the high E string is 11 thousandths of an inch. That's a pretty heavy gauge. picked up Billy Gibbons' guitar and he hands it back and says, "Why are you working so hard?" And you see what B.B. King was using. He was using 8/1000ths of an inch. So we're talking 3/1000ths of an inch. That's a good reduction, and it's noticeable. Obviously, it does help. It does affect your tone in a different way, but I've never heard anyone. Billy Gibbons has gone even slimmer than that, and he probably uses the skinniest strings I've ever seen made. I've tried them, but I've never heard anyone say Billy Gibbons has a bad guitar tone.
Right.
But he sounds distinctly like Billy Gibbons. You know, so all of these little things. It's everything. Everything changed. What kind of effects do you like? What kind of things? Everything is different. I mean, the options are as varied as the number of guitar players are in the world. You know, everyone's going to play like everybody. They're going to play like themselves, even though they've taken the "We Stand on the Shoulders of Giants." You've taken a little bit all the way back to Robert Johnson, even back to Bach, and all these other things. We've taken Paganini. We've taken all these little bits that we've heard over the years. We've put them together in our own unique voice, and it's just neat. I mean, it's the only way to say it. It's cool.
And I kind of want to circle back to the recording piece, right? Because I'm always curious about how each artist does the recording process. Did you record it all separately, or did you all get together and we're gonna play this song as a band and record it as a band?
Well, the modern way of doing things is that you generally lay down tracks. The drummer lays down his part, the bass player lays down his part. You usually have what we call a scratch track, where we kind of have whether it's one guy with an acoustic guitar playing the song all the way through, or whether it's a band practice where it's okay, this is a good one. We'll use this as our scratch track. Then the drummer lays down his track, then the bass player, then the guitars, then the keyboards, or whatever other instruments you got, and then the vocals. Wasn't always that way. It used to be before the days of sound-on-sound recording. Thank you, Les Paul. He's more than just a guitar. That's how you did it. You had to play it all at the same time. And damn it if that's not hard to do. Because with the Divine Wind Brotherhood, we're trying to recapture that vintage vibe. And in that vintage vibe, that's how they recorded things. The recording studios weren't these, elaborate, as they got more and more, elaborate, settings. There was just a bunch of guys in a dirty room with a microphone hanging in the middle of the room. But we are kind of blending a little because we are recording into a digital format, and we have each individual instrument mic'd to its own track, but we're all playing together, and I think that kind of gives it the live feel. A lot of I've seen other bands where it's man, their recordings are kind of sterile. They're good, but it's sterile. It just doesn't feel alive. And then you go see that band live,
and it's off the charts.
It's off the charts good.
Yeah.
Because it's just wow, these guys they're playing off of each other now. They actually have to play off of each other, and there's no net. There's no net live. I mean, if you fall, you either get back up. Recoveries are important. How you recover from. We've had obviously every jam night we have flubs of our own, but how you
My
recover.
first song last night was jacked up, so I feel you on that one.
No, I actually loved getting up there and doing War Pigs. That was a fun one.
Oh, that was great. That made up for the terrible version, the terrible rendition of. And I'm sorry, Aaron Lewis, I butchered your song. I really did.
But you had fun doing it, and that's the most important part.
Yeah.
We had a good time. Everyone was encouraging each other. And I'm glad to see more of that. Music can be competitive.
Yeah.
It easily can be very competitive. Where this band blows, this guitar player sucks. I'm like, no, this guitar player plays like himself. But we had Sean and myself had a discussion earlier talking about different guitar players and what things can mean, and how their playing shows you what is possible. Say you take a guitar player like Yngwie Malmsteen, this or even Vi or any of these guys that are absolute shred guitar players. They take the guitar to its absolute limit of what it can do. And then you get a guy like Neil Young on Cinnamon Girl. His guitar solo is literally one note, the entire solo, right? And you're like, but he's saying a lot with one note, you know? He's actually making this one note mean something, you know? So there's actually some kind of cool things. And my thing is I'm going to take on one of our future songs, I want to try and make a two-note solo. I just play two notes.
That would be epic.
Because you know, sometimes by limiting yourself, you make yourself have to say what you really mean. You know what I mean? You know, I can play a million different notes all at once, and it's cool, but there are certain tracks. So one of my greatest influences as a guitar player was Gary Moore. And if you're sure you heard us do Still Got the Blues.
Yeah.
But he had another one where he was just using the feedback from the amplifier to the guitar, right? If you hit a certain note at a certain time, much like you can make it a breaking glass, or you find a resonant frequency, right? And where the speaker is putting out enough volume at the right frequency with the note that you're playing, and it will that vibration in the air, because sound is nothing more than air moving, right? And that air is moving the string, so the string just keeps going, and you get this sustain from the feedback. And he holds this one note for, like, I want to say, 20 seconds. So it's just like forever. It doesn't drop in volume. He's just sitting there, and you'll watch some videos, and he'll sit there and hold it, and he'll just have this look on his face like, yeah. But it just sounds so cool because it's one note. How do you do that? You know, it's just getting your gear to work symbiotically. Everything works together, you know, in just the right way, and you just get magic, you know.
And then in terms of like live performance too, right? So like, are you the kind of person that likes to start the night off with a set list, but then react to the audience, or are you just kind of like, let's see what the audience puts out for us, and we're just going to go in whatever direction we go in?
I do like to have a set list to start. I really do. It kind of, you know, because, you know, realistically, we don't know every song in the world. I mean, I like to think I have a pretty good working knowledge of the instrument, and I can figure out a lot of different songs pretty quickly. And you have to at a jam, you know. But I don't know every song, you know, and so it's hard to take requests too, because, you know, we had someone ask the Raven Kings of all bands to do Sweet Caroline.
Oh wow!
You know, or, you know, it's like. It's still a great song. Yeah, it really is. But it's not in the wheelhouse of what we're doing, you know?
Yeah. Okay, that's blowing me away a little bit. Like, because it's like one of those things where it's like, okay, I'm going to get on my soapbox for a second. If you're going to see a band and they tell you they don't know a song, respect that, please, and just let it go, and just appreciate and try and find a different song. Because, like, I've seen so many times where you have somebody who is extremely intoxicated get upset at a band for not knowing a particular song, and I'm like, it's impossible for any human being to remember every single song ever created. That's just never gonna happen.
Yeah, we're not a breathing version of Spotify,
right?
You know, but now that being said, it is kind of nice to know a few deep cuts. To wit, we had a gig. We were playing in Springfield with my old band. We were called 8 Balls.
I love that name.
Yeah, I have a good joke about that one, but I don't know if it's good for the audience. I don't know if okay. Well, okay. I used to tell people, because people go, "Oh, it's 4 guys, isn't it?" I said, "No, it's actually 5 of us. 2 of us had testicular cancer." Just to get their reaction, and they said, "No, it's 4 guys." I love to throw people off a little bit. You know?
Well, it makes them think. It's like, whoa.
Yeah. Well, it kind of makes them think you have to think a little bit ahead sometimes, you know. Sometimes you don't know what a person's story is. And so by doing something like that, now maybe they'll think before they just pop off with an idea and a question that may or may not be appropriate for the situation, you know.
Yeah.
You know, as far as, especially when it comes to things, you know, certain things of, you know, our life story, what our mental state is, what our whether we're standard or neurodivergent or what have you. You have to approach things delicately sometimes, and it's okay,
100%.
and sometimes making a joke out of the situation is better than nothing. I had a friend in school who was she was in a car fire when she was a toddler, and she was horrifically scarred from all of this. Beautiful young gal, but was mistreated by so many people because of her physical appearance. But she did have she had a dark sense of humor about it. I love a dark sense of humor. It's a load-bearing structure sometimes. People would ask her what happened to her. She goes, "It's those darn tanning beds." Or we were playing hide and seek, and my sister hid in the dryer. My sister turned it on. Just something really dark. But anyway, back to the with the 8 balls. We'd learned a song, a random deep track by a Canadian artist, not very well known here. The song's called "Mama Let 'Em Play," and it's usually a pretty common practice. And obviously requests. People are going to ask requests, even if we don't know the song. A lot of people are generally pretty awesome about it, saying, "We don't know that one. We'll see if we." But she asked for this song called "Mama Let 'Em Play," because they try to play stump the band. Sometimes that's part of it too. It's like, "Oh, do you guys know this song?" She says, "Well, let's see what we can come up with." And we came out and we just tore up that song on her, and her jaw hit the floor. It was kind of fun, So sometimes knowing obscure 70s Canadian music can be kind of interesting.
Especially from the audience perspective, right? So, like, if I flip it on the other side, sometimes you all come out with a song, like, out of left field that I'm not anticipating. And I love it when you go, like, when you take that pivot, and I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I haven't heard this song in years.
Oh, yeah. Because we love a lot of the same music that our fans do, and the people that come to see us. We love the same music. And sometimes we love stuff that's completely out of our wheelhouse, so we'll still do that anyway, even though it's not our thing, because someone likes it and it's fun.
And that's the importance of like live music, right? And what I tell people all the time is like when you go to a local show with a local band, not only is it going to be an amazing show, you never know what surprises are in store. Yeah. Like you have guests, people come up on the stage sometimes. Oh, hey, Sal's in the house. Come on, Sal, drum a song for us. And it's just like that flexibility and that change. It just makes every performance just that special. And when you get to some of these national acts, it's the same performance every single week because all of these different cities want a different thing. No, your local musicians have to change it up because the audience sort of demands it, if you will.
You get kind of a lightning in the bottle situation, and then sometimes you catch something really unusual. Just a few weeks ago, my wife and I went and saw Trans-Siberian Orchestra. It's an amazing show. If you haven't gone, bucket list.
Amazing.
I promise you. It's a light show, and the musicianship is off the charts. The lights and the sound, the spectacle of the whole thing is amazing. Do not go if you are prone to seizures. You are warned. Flashing lights, lasers, all crazy stuff. But even though it's a great spectacle, it still feels somewhat canned. Yeah. Everything has to be, because they have things like amazing pyro, right? And you have to be in the right place at the right time, because if you misstep, you're safe. Now you're on fire. If you don't hit that mark, if you hit the mark right, you're safe. If you're 2 feet off of that mark, your hair's on fire. In a big enough production, you do have to, you have to be a little bit more pre-planned. Because then obviously you're spending a lot of money to see something really cool, and it's not really cool to see someone burst into flames unless he's drumming for Spinal Tap.
Or one of those odd shows about Slipknot that I won't get into here, but because I always think there's also a difference, right? There's a difference between well practiced and rehearsed, and I love the well practiced bands that are able to be flexible and have a different guitar solo with the same song every night. Have a little flexibility in a bass line or a drum line. And so it's like, certain songs, obviously, if you don't do them correctly, like Sweet Child of Mine, if you mess up that guitar lick, people are going to know. But
Exactly.
for a lot of songs, you have this freedom of being close, but your own sort of flavor to it.
I totally on board with that. I mean, I love, and I rarely play the same thing twice. I play a lot of things off the cuff. I really do. Some songs I have pretty well rehearsed if it requires it to be rehearsed, because it just, I call the things that you need to hit, we call them mile markers, right? You know a little lick that where it goes in the song, it needs to be there. That's how you know, not only for you guys to really enjoy what we're playing, because you expect to hear a certain note or two or a certain phrase, but a lot of these phrases are also audio cues, right? We all cue off of each other, so things like how the bass player is doing. If he hits that mile marker that I need him to hit, I know it's time to go into the next section. If the vocals, even down to vocal cadence, how you speak the lines, that can make a difference too. So a lot of the times in rehearsals with other bands, when we didn't have the singer in with us at the time, they had to be elsewhere for the rehearsal. I would do what we call Swedish chefing the lyrics, because that vocal cadence is a cue. It really is. All these little things that you hear, a cymbal hit, a guitar note, a bass note, a keyboard run, all of these things, they're all audio cues. So by having and I'll just, I'll just do the Swedish chef thing, because that way I don't know the words, because I don't learn everything about the song. I mean, I learn the lyrics to the songs that I sing.
Yeah.
But you asked me the lyrics for Cobra Queen.
And there's only so much room up here.
Yeah, there's only so much, and I try to fit a lot into this. So there's a lot of room in this cranium. I have a rather large head, physically, not just metaphorically. I'm the guy that made hat manufacturers change their labels to one size fits most. Yeah, so I at least know the vocal cadence. I know what it's supposed to, the rhythm of the syllables, right? That rhythm of that syllables is to me more important than what the actual words are. Even though I sometimes when it's an important song, you want to know what the words are, because the words can convey a meaning, whether it's spiritual, political, whatever. If it's important to know, because it's all music, and it's all done for different purposes. Some people want to have a party. Some people want to send a message. Some people, it's just whatever you want to do with it.
And that's what I love most about music in general, right? Because depending on what mood you're in, there's a band or a song for that.
Oh, yeah.
Depending on what sort of emotional whatever you've got going on. You want to party, there's a playlist for that. You want to drown in sorrow because your brother just died, there's a song for that. And that's what I love most about music. And also, I don't think, to my core, there's no such thing as bad music. It's only music you like and music that somebody else might not like.
Yeah.
And whatever your fancy is, that's good enough for me.
Yeah. And I always try to not limit myself into what I listen to. Even Pepper will let you know, my wife. Yeah, we'll drive down the road, and I'll be switching through radio stations. And it's kind of funny, because I have this thing. It's like, okay, I know that song. Click. Okay, I've already visualized the rest of the song in my head. And I'm on to the next thing. Well, she's like, can you stop? I want to listen to that song. I already know the song. I've already been there. I've done that. And sometimes hearing a song too many times in a day, or too many times a week, or however often you want to hear said piece of music, I need a little more variety. So I've got on our XM or Sirius, I've got a hair metal station. I've got a yacht rock station. Yacht rock players are amazing. Don't let anyone fool you with that smooth music. Those guys are on the top of their game. But 70s, 80s, 90s. I try to keep everything going. Because it sometimes electronica, sometimes, country, sometimes, but good country. I'm pretty particular about the country side of things. I need good musicianship.
Yeah.
A lot of a lot of modern country music, we just say it's pop music with twang.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. Give me some Johnny Cash, give me some Brad Paisley, because he's a freaking monster guitar player. Stuff like that. Some Chet Atkins, some Jerry Reed, and what surprises a lot of people is to find, guys like Glenn Campbell. That guy was a monster player. He wasn't just Rhinestone Cowboy. He was in a group. I don't know if you ever saw the documentary on the Wrecking Crew.
Yeah.
Essential watching for people who are into watching, especially session players. What they call a session musician. A lot of the stuff in the 60s was all done by house bands, in Capitol Records, or a certain group of people, because they can go in, they can get the song done in 2 takes, and they're out. And in fact, there was even stuff where they had completely composed and written songs and recorded the songs, but they didn't have an actual band. So they put together a band of people that looked the part and said, "This is the band that did this album." It's like, no.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting that you say that, because I have the exact opposite problem.
Yeah.
I have to start to I have to play an album from first song to finish. And if I get interrupted along the way, I have to start over again. And I've been listening to the same 5 albums for the last 20 some odd years.
Oh yeah, I'm not completely opposed to that either. When I get a new album, I want to listen to this new music. I want to hear the whole thing in its entirety.
I kind of feel like you have to respect. You want to respect the artist enough to at least give it a once or twice through the whole thing.
Oh, back when we still had physical albums before the dark times of streaming, and the like. When you bought an album, it was an event. It was a personal event. You got home. You carefully peeled off the cellophane. You put the media into your record player, your CD, your cassette player. You put it on. You either dimmed the lights or closed the door. You opened up the liner notes, and you read everything about that. You didn't know who these people were, like the A&R guy. It's like, who's this guy? He's been on a lot of different albums, and then you find out, oh, that's that guy. He's, but and then after a while of listening to these albums, and they've put out several albums since then you buy what they call their greatest hits compilation, because you still want to support the music that you love, even though but now they're out of order. It feels wrong.
Yeah.
The album as they put it out has a flow. A lot of artists used to put that into perspective. They would take an album, they would say, well, I like this song here and this song here, but this song doesn't work over here, let's put it here, so that the album as a whole becomes a musical piece unto itself. And especially with concept albums, things like The Wall or Operation Mindcrime. You have to hear these things, fully through. That way because the whole album tells a story by itself. So when you take it out of order, it's like reading chapter 1, chapter 5, chapter 3, chapter 7. You're not reading. Yeah, you read the end. So it's like you're reading the end before the beginning. How do you know how you got there?
Yeah, and I love the intentionality of that too, right? And one of the things that scares me about the way music is headed now is this over-reliance on singles, and this whole I heard an article, I read an article the other day where Tool is considering a single route, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, what?
They're one of those bands that's known for big storytelling albums, where the album just flows from one piece to the next, and sometimes you don't know where track 1 begins and track 2, track 1 ends, track 2 begins, or like Dream Theater. There's a whole.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
And I don't know if you've ever heard the album, but my favorite album of theirs is 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence.
Yeah,
that is an amazing album. Every bit of that album, from start to finish, the whole second disc of it, where it's just one 42-minute long, just nonstop, but it goes through all these different types of mental illness, and it's you listen to these stories and you're like, wow, these guys really thought about things. These guys are really, and not only is the musicianship unreal, but everything just flows together. Even though to the uninitiated, a lot of their pieces can be a little bit obtuse because they get into odd time signatures, they get into weird key changes and things like that. But
I love that.
yeah, it's like, how are they going to come out of this? You know, what are they going to? That? Holy crap!
And one of my favorite albums of all time is Sullivan, which was a release you can't find anymore of Tool.
Yeah.
Where it's two live versions of two of their most amazing songs, but then also a rendition of No Quarter.
Yeah.
That is off the charts better than the original. And so it's like one of those things where you can't find that. It's not streaming. It's not available anywhere. You have to buy the album or go search for it because it's no longer in production.
Yeah, and that can be hard to do. Luckily, we've got here in town, we have a couple of actual used record stores.
I keep looking for it. I keep popping in.
It's like
it
2
just
blocks
hasn't
over.
showed up yet.
Have you been to Happy Trails here?
Yeah.
In Corvallis? Okay. There's also Pre-Atomic Records just right up the block.
I went to 3 music stores in Maine when I was there
Yeah.
to see if they had it. So.
Okay. Well, it can be hard, and sometimes that's half the fun of it, is the thrill of the hunt. Eventually once you catch it, you're like, well, now what? But yeah, it's always there's always a thrill of a hunt, and going into a record store is kind of fun. It really is, because you can see some weird stuff that you've never seen, and then some, and I've bought albums just based on the title of one song. We'd never heard the album at all. It was a country instrumental group called the Helicasters. Imagine, if you will, 3 of the best country pickers known to man.
Interesting.
All in one album. And this song was called Mad Cows at Ease.
Okay, that's worth it.
That was worth the cost of admission. And I was blown away by the playing on it too, because oh my gosh, and these guys are playing very little effect, distortion, no distortion, all clean, telly kind of sounds. And when you're playing with a clean sound, a lot of guitar players prefer to play with distortion because it hides a lot of stuff. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah.
It not only does it give you some really cool notes, but boy, oh boy, when you hit a flurry of notes, the distortion will hide your flubs. It kind of will. But if you're playing on a completely, truly clean amplifier, you're naked. Yeah, I mean, you better be on it. And if you can play things clean, these guys are on their game. Some of the best musicians I've heard, and they're just having a blast. But all of it's rather, I would say, approachable for most people. A lot of instrumental music, or music or just stuff with that level of musicianship, people find unapproachable because it's like it's too complex. I call it or music for musicians. It was last week we went and saw the Stickmen. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
No.
Okay, Tony Levin?
No.
He plays an instrument called the Chapman stick.
Oh.
Imagine some weird hybrid guitar-based instrument that you do not play. It's stringed. It has usually 10 to 12 strings on it. It's fretted, but you only play it by tapping the strings.
Fascinating.
And it's a really cool instrument. Tony Levin is known for playing that. He also plays bass. He played for a time in King Crimson, amongst other projects. Well worth looking to. But Stickmen, the people that were there, that musicians, were really vibing and digging things, but people that didn't know, they kind of had this look, that's nice, it's cool, it's really cool, but I don't know what's going on, they get into some improv stuff, but these guys are, amazing. They do stuff like, odd time signatures that change every measure,
how do you keep up with that as a musician?
Yeah. You get really good at counting.
You have to have kind of a math brain.
Exactly. You have to have a very mathematical mind, and keep counting in that tempo. It's like 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 1 2 3. Yeah. So you know where the 1 is. When you know where the 1 is, you can figure out pretty well. You can do pretty well. But it's figuring out where the 1 is sometimes, and sometimes they do a pretty good job of hiding where that is. Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah.
Actually, I interviewed a gentleman by the name of Al Meyer up in Tacoma who plays the Zen drum.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've even seen it. So the Zen drum is a drum kit that's on it's in the shape of a guitar.
Huh.
and it has like 20 some odd different levels of percussion that you can sort of program. But
Nice.
instead of needing a huge drum kit, you just sits up there and just plucks on it like a guitar,
Cool.
and it sounds just like a double bass drum set.
Yeah, I love stuff like that. I love technological advancements and things like that. Guitar players can be a very stodgy bunch of folks. You know, they want things done the way they were done in 1952 when Leo Fender perfected the Telecaster. Like, no, we've learned things. You know, we've gotten better materials, we've gotten better adjustments, we've gotten all this stuff better than it ever has been, and it's okay to embrace that. It's also still okay to, to nod back to the past and know that, that a lot of these instruments that were made back then are still in service and still have cool, and have a vibe. Sometimes, instruments, they tell their own stories sometimes, I mean, like when I showed you earlier that banjo I fixed. It's got a big scar across the headstock from when the headstock was broken off. I've got it glued back on. It doesn't look perfect, but now it's got a story, and there's a bigger story than that apparently. But these are all these little things are a bit of the story, That's why I love dinged up guitars of my own. I don't love relic guitars. That's a thing,
Right.
Where I call them hell out of it guitars. Someone took a perfectly good guitar and beat the hell out of it.
On purpose,
On
right?
purpose, and then they show. Yeah, I mean, I have one of my guitars I've had since I was 16, and it's beat to hell, but it's beat to hell just from use, not because someone at the factory decided we needed to make it look old. It just is.
It's like those Nordstrom jeans.
Yeah.
So Nordstrom came out with jeans with fake mud on them so that people could pretend like they had a hard day's work.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, I laugh when I see people wearing certain sets of people wearing Carhartt clothes. Like it goes back to my culture is not your costume.
Yeah.
I mean, these were these things are built for a purpose, and it's like you're doing it for fashion other than purpose, but hey, you do you. Yeah.
So we've been at this for well over an hour. And I have one final question because it's been bothering me since I sat down.
Okay.
What instrument is that over your shoulder?
Which one?
The one up on the shelf laying horizontally.
Oh, this guy.
Yeah, I have never seen that instrument before, and I have to know because it's so cool.
This is called a mountain dulcimer. And it's an Appalachian style instrument, primarily. It is tuned usually in an open tuning, right? So the idea is pre-electricity, pre-recorded music. All music was live music. There was no recorded music. All music was live music. So if you didn't have the wherewithal to get into town to go see some music, you had a family band on the porch, right? And you'd play music together because that's how we did things, right? Music was huge. But it was all local and it was all live. So what about people who don't play an instrument? Right? What if I told you could play this instrument easily and you could make a song on this instrument? How do you play any instruments by yourself?
I don't.
You don't? You can play this. The fretting on this is all typically within, if you'll notice, they're not evenly spaced like a guitar.
Yeah, they're all different lengths and different sizes.
But they're, so we have the different, these are basically scale notes. So it's all on a major scale. See?
How about that?
You can't hit a wrong note.
How fascinating is that?
So grandma, who can't really play anything, now she can play with the band. She can play with the family. We can all make music together. That's what these kind of instruments are for. These are for people to play music together who don't normally play music.
Because one of the things that I always talk about is like the accessibility issue. And like just the thought of like a musician, like the musical instrument like that might allow somebody who may not otherwise be able to play music. Because you don't have to hold it in your hands, you don't have to hold it upright.
Hold it in your lap.
If you're even in a wheelchair, you can play this instrument. Wow.
Give it a go.
How is that? That is just... I am going to be terrible at this.
That's okay. Everyone starts off terrible. But you
Interesting.
just fret down on the 2-string here.
And then go. Oh, interesting. So in a way, it's in perfect harmony whether you push down on these or not.
Uh-huh.
Fascinating.
It's called an open tuning.
And so is it the same if you like just put one here? Well, I can't do that with this thumb, but that is fascinating. Okay.
Yeah.
I love
How
that.
cool is that? Yeah, mountain dulcimer. We do have a lot of really interesting instruments. We've got this one's neat.
What is that one?
This is called a thunder tube.
Okay.
Now you just rattle it back and forth like you're shaking a can of paint.
How cool is that?
Yeah, these are things so everyone can make music. We want everyone making music. We've got a tongue drum. That's more of a atmospheric type instrument, but people will take this tongue drum right here, and they will remove a downspout from their gutters, let the rain fall on it, and then
All of that with the rain.
yeah.
How fascinating. And I actually like that a lot better than I do those wind chimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Because
when
wind
it's
chimes are
raining,
usually
you can
not in tune, and that's what drives me bonkers.
Yeah, and with rain usually causes depression. Obviously with the gray weather, you see a lot of people getting depressed, seasonal affective disorder. Something like this can help them, because you get this melodic, uplifting kind of sound. So, I mean, music is healing, man.
It is so much needed for a sense of community too,
Yeah.
right? Because like one of the things that I love about music is it doesn't care who you are or what your political beliefs are or what your religion is. If you want to enjoy this music, it is here for you to enjoy. And I love that about music.
And we make it a great point here that we try to tell everyone, it's like we don't discuss those things here in the shop. We
It's
don't
nothing
discuss
but music.
politics. It's nothing
Yeah.
but music. I don't want to hear about, and I have my own political views, which are different from my business partner's political views. But that's okay. We connect over music, and we discuss this, and because of that, I've had a lot of great friends who I vehemently disagree with on a lot of things, but we play music, man. And we enjoy each other's company while we're playing music. So and it's pretty awesome, and sometimes in some of these discussions in our disagreements, we tend to see each other's perspective.
Yeah.
Right? And then when we see things, and sometimes we get so entrenched in our own ideas that we can't see the other perspective and see what their perspective is. I tend to lean more conservatively. I call was it Neil Peart? He called himself a bleeding heart libertarian.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I like to think I am. I want as little as possible encroachment into our personal lives. As little as possible, but I also want people to help each other. But I want people to help each other out of a sense of willingness and out of that sense of community, not out of a sense of you have to do this. Because if someone is forced to do something, they'll do it, but they're not going to do it with a heart of gratitude towards the other people. But if someone says, "Hey, I need some help," like you've seen, like we've done, where we've been trying to help, Steffi, it's like we want to help, and we're going to do what we can, and we're going to do it willingly, and here you go, and then it's received more well.
100%.
It's given more freely. It's received more freely. Everyone is more. It feels better in the end. Obviously there's plenty of other issues to worry about, but I tend to leave a lot of the bigger issues out of my own personal picture, because it's more about this connection here.
100%.
And what can I do to be your friend, to be someone to lift you up, What can you do? Because, I can't lift a guy up 3,000 miles from here. I mean, I can to some degree, but you can't hug a person over FaceTime.
Yeah.
And that physical touch, that connection, that deep connection, that's the important thing.
You can't replace it.
Can't replace it.
Yeah, and sort of to that point, though, they have actually done brain scans and scientific studies and scientific research that says that our DNA is prone to push back if we're trying to force to do something.
Yeah.
We don't like being told what to do.
Yes.
And if you can just not tell people what to do, but help everybody that we can, I think this world will be a better place.
And it also helps, and it's also better when you're doing it and you're meeting people and you're actually seeing faces. It's easy for a politician to make a broad general statement. They don't have to look me in the eye, But if you come to me and you say, I need help with this, I'm short money, or my car's broken down, or my furnace is broken, I still have all of my skills to fix people's homes. Because 25, 30 years of this type of nonsense, and I've got a lot of skills, so I need the help. Well, and this guy's going to charge me up the wazoo for it. It says, tell you what, cover my fuel, I'll help you out. You need the help. I don't want to see, grandma go without heat, that kind of thing. And even when I was doing it professionally still, I would work until, sometimes 9, 10 o'clock at night because I had an emergency. I remember one in particular, his heater change out. There was no heat. This woman was on hospice care, in home, and she had like maybe days left to live, and her furnace went out. Guess what's going to, I was there until I was done, until that place was warm, because, that lady's last days on this earth
should be comfortable. And I took it as my job, even though I was paid to do it. I mean, I could have gone home at 5 o'clock and said, I can't finish it, I'll be back tomorrow. Now it's like, no, this is important. This lady is dying and needs to be comfortable in that process. So I just did, So, that's how I usually tend to work. I like to help people because I want to. So as we wind down this conversation, I would like you to take the opportunity to sort of like tell people listening like what they would experience when they come through these doors.
Well, first thing you're going to experience is one of two people, myself and Sean. We're easy to tell apart.
Right?
I have hair and Sean doesn't. We're gonna greet you. Obviously, we're gonna ask you what you're looking for. Because usually, if you're just looking, feel free to look. If you don't know what you're looking for, we'll say if you have any questions. We tend to be very low pressure. We don't want you. We're not gonna. What's it gonna take to get you to take this guitar home today? No, it's like you might not find the guitar you're looking for here. You might not, and that's okay. But we want to give you the information. We want to give you the information. We want you to know what you're getting and know as much as possible. And if you have questions, we want to answer. I'm not above saying I don't know the answer, but I'm also willing to find out the answer. I have the Google machine over there that, hey, what wood is this particular guitar made of? I don't know for sure, but just a second. Give me the model number. Okay, boom, and I'll find out what it's made of. Because there are so many different wood combinations. It's crazy. And one of my favorites is actually over here. We have these guitars, that blue one up there.
Oh, that is awesome.
That one is made in Bend. The brand is called Breedlove. It is made from Oregon myrtle wood.
How much of a difference in sound is that?
Oh, it's got an interesting sound quality. Spruce is known for being bright. That's why you see it on a lot of guitars, especially big dreadnoughts. Cedar is a softer, mellower tone. You have mahogany. The back and the sides can make a difference. Myrtle wood kind of lies somewhere in the middle. So it's got some depth, it's got some brightness, it's got a little of everything. It's pretty well balanced, and that company's actually pioneered the use of myrtle as a tone wood. Usually, you see myrtle wood is usually trinkets.
Yeah. Yeah.
But these and what's really cool, and I'll show you some pictures later. Myrtle wood varies very wildly on its grain pattern. So sometimes I get some guitars that are just absolutely striking and don't need any color because the wood is just so like wildly, it's like dark, light, dark, light. It's crazy. It's beautiful. It's the wood does all the talking for you. But sonically, they're great. I actually enjoy them. But yeah, we're gonna be friendly, and if you're gonna need repairs, we live by the mantra: faster, cheaper, better. We want to get your guitar back to you as soon as possible, because if you're a musician, this is the tools of your trade, right? You don't have tools, you can't do your job. So we want to get it ready for you. We want to actually make sure that, one, it's done correctly. Not that we don't make mistakes, because that does happen from time to time. We're human. But if that does happen, you bring it back, we will make it right quickly. And generally we're going to have it back to you in a faster. And musicians, we're broke.
Yeah.
We don't make a lot of money doing this. If any at all. In fact, sometimes we tell you that we're lucky if we break even playing music.
Some venues don't pay you enough to buy new strings for your guitar.
Exactly. It's like the definition of a musician is a person who puts $5,000 worth of gear into a $500 car and drives 100 miles to play for gas money.
That about sums it up.
Yeah, it really does. But so we want to make sure that everything that we can do is as affordable as possible. But to some degree, we got to keep the door swinging. If the door doesn't swing open, not much we can do. But we love everyone. Yeah, we just try and we treat everyone's guitar, as if it's their prized possession. Because to some people, that's all they have in this world is their guitar. And we want it to be just as good as it can be. But we're also, we also take into account playing style of the individual who's playing it, because like I said, not everyone plays the same. Some people want to fight, some people want it easy. So we tailor all of our adjustments to suit the player. We want to make it uniquely you.
And this is a cool place for entry into music. So what I mean by that is, if you're on the fence of what musical instrument you want to start, or sort of like which magical journey, like, you can come here and ask those safe questions.
Yeah.
Because like some instruments, for example, may be harder to pick up and learn than others.
And we don't judge people for not having the knowledge, like some other shops we've heard of doing. Everyone starts knowing absolutely nothing about music. So you have to start. The nice thing about the guitar, especially the acoustic guitar, is that it's portable. You can make music anywhere. You can take it with you, pull it out, play in the park, right? Try pulling a grand piano out of it.
Right.
And you can do the same thing with a lot of other instruments, but horns, like the trumpet, the trombone, they play one note. You generally want to be in an ensemble to get a full musical piece. Now, with the guitar, you can accompany yourself with one instrument wherever you're at, and in whatever place you're at. You can do that also with mandolin or any other of the stringed and fretted, I like to call them. You can make banjo music. But yeah, with the guitar, you can just boom, you can be a one-man band. You can just do solo guitar and vocal at a coffee shop, or you can get the Les Paul through Marshall stack at the Rose Garden. It's everything in between. And the things like the effects pedals, are so many different things you can. It's a rabbit hole. Really.
And something I always recommend to folks too, if they're sort of wanting to start down that musical journey, keep your favorite musicians in mind and bring that with you, so that this place here can help you find the instrument that can help you make the sound that you love the most.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, like I said, you're not going to sound like James Taylor on a Gibson SG through a crate. You're going to need a nice acoustic guitar for that. So what your goal needs to be. Sometimes you want to do a little bit of everything. So we have a little bit of everything. It's kind of fun. It's an amazing amount of fun, and I'm blessed to be able to have this store. And I'm even so much more that my wife supports me in this, even though I don't make a lot of money doing this. I am broker than I have ever been, on a personal level. I mean, I went from making 6 figures doing commercial HVAC to I make pittance, but I love what I do. I love coming home I love, being here. So there are times I will lose myself in a job, and she'll call me at 11 o'clock and say, "Do I need to bring a cot down for you?" I'm like, "Oh crap, I forgot what time it was." Because I just, it's just so much. I love it. I love it. Yeah, everything about it. There's just, it does have its stressful moments. Sometimes we get some customers that are a little less than gracious, but the good ones far more outweigh it and more to make up for that. And sometimes it gives us good stories. We love good stories.
And folks, we're at Bullfrog Music here in Corvallis, Oregon. Check this place out. Jim, thank you so much. The Raven Kings. What's the name of the other band too? The surf band.
The Divine Wind
The
Brotherhood.
Divine Wind Brotherhood.
Look that one up on Bandcamp, and you can purchase our single on a 45, vinyl 45. It's so cool.
Please go to Bandcamp.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where, and I'm going to say it ad nauseum, I know, folks, but go to the spots that actually pay the musicians for their music, and don't go to the spots where you can stream the music and the musicians don't make any money.
Yeah. Pennies for 100 plays.
Pennies for 100 plays.
Yeah.
On that note, I'll end the podcast the way I always end the podcast. Folks, be kind. We all live on the same planet. We share the same air, and this world would just be a much better place if we treated everybody with dignity and respect. Jim, thank you.